Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, still waiting for the money they're owed. A local TSA worker says he hasn't received back pay from the government shutdown, and he's not the only one. How the agency says hundreds of people are affected.
It's a phone! Not a gun! It's a phone! Not a gun!
Police arrest dozens of protesters in Sacramento. Why community members are outraged by new developments in a high-profile police shooting.
We're dealing with very small volumes that a human can't transfer. The robots are also more exact, obviously, but they're also faster. They can run 24/7.
And local scientists tell us how they're using robots to develop new breakthroughs in medicine. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Tuesday, March 5th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. More than a month after the government shutdown has ended, at least 1,000 federal workers still have not received their back pay. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar talked to one of those workers and has reaction from TSA.
Ron Gerber has been a Transportation Security Authority worker for 14 years.
Still, I want to keep the skies safe and make sure that nobody gets on that plane that's going to do anything wrong. And that gives me a sense of satisfaction that I can do that.
But lately, Gerber and many of his fellow co-workers have questioned that sense of duty. He was one of 51,000 TSA workers who worked without pay for a period of 35 days. The average TSA worker makes $35,000 a year, according to the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard to make ends meet. The uncertainty was really bad.
Now Gerber believes he's owed anywhere from a few hundred to a few $1,000s in back pay, more than a month after the government reopened. According to a TSA spokesperson, 1,000 workers require some sort of pay correction. But Gerber, who is also the local steward for the American Federation of Government Employees, the union representing TSA workers, says because of overtime and different hourly wages, it's hard to figure out exactly how much money each employee is missing.
Then again, I'm not even sure which pay period I'm missing because during the furlough, everything was wiped out. So when I looked at my results of my pay, I had 0 sick time accrued and 0 leave. Everything went back to 0. And in fact, all our earnings went back to 0. So that confused everybody, myself and everybody else.
In a statement to KPBS, TSA says it did make partial payments to its frontline employees, which processed the day the shutdown ended. But out of the 60,000 employees, 2% have experienced pay discrepancies. The agency also says it's been in contact with impacted employees to ensure these issues are resolved. Gerber says he has not heard anything from TSA. Workers in San Diego did receive an email from local human resources representatives that said they are not able to assist impacted workers and that workers should not continue to reach out to the National Human Resources branch of the TSA. We, the workers, are now stuck with nowhere to turn. We can't go national, we can't go local. And we're just supposed to wait, which is what we did in January. Wait for it to be over. This week, the National Union called on impacted workers to submit a form to notify them of any continuing back pay issues. Gerber and his co-workers hope that they can help find a way to get them their money soon. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
The local chapter of the American Federation for Government Employees plans to give out grants to impacted workers. The 2020 presidential election will not be a rematch. During an interview with a television station in New York, Hillary Clinton announced she's not running again.
I'm not running, but I'm going to keep working and speaking and standing up for what I believe. I want to be sure that people understand I'm going to keep speaking out. I'm not going anywhere. What's at stake in our country, the kinds of things that are happening right now are deeply troubling to me. We've gotten not just polarized, we've gotten into really opposing camps, unlike anything I've ever seen in my adult life.
The former Secretary of State received nearly 3 million more votes in the 2016 election, but President Donald Trump won the Electoral College. Clinton says she has talked with several Democrats who have already launched their 2020 campaigns. So far, she has not endorsed any of those candidates. Some Republicans, including San Diego's mayor, say their party needs a more moderate approach to be competitive in California. That was the focus today in Sacramento at the New Way California Summit. Republican politicians and activists are pushing for a focus on tax reform and environmental policies that might help them win more elections across the state.
But it's time for our party to tap into that bold attitude and modernize itself as a party in step with the residents that we want to represent. A party of new solutions. A party that fights for our middle class. A party that wins again. And this won't be easy with Washington shaking up the political world on a daily basis. And that's why the California Republican Party must not be a carbon copy of the national GOP. Each state is a unique laboratory of democracy. And California Republicans need to create a party tailored to the people of California.
Republicans are largely outnumbered by Democrats at the state capitol. In January, San Diego Assemblymember Brian Mainshine left the party and became a Democrat. He says part of the reasoning is because Republicans at the national level have become too conservative. Police in Sacramento say they're ready for demonstrations tonight after local prosecutors decided not to file charges in a police shooting case.
It's a phone! Not a gun! It's a phone! Not a gun!
Protesters shouted, "It's a phone, not a gun," in reference to last year's killing of Stephon Clark. The 22-year-old African-American man was shot and killed by 2 Sacramento police officers last year. Police said they thought he had a gun at the time, but it turned out he was holding a phone. 80 people were arrested during last night's protest. More demonstrations are expected at tonight's city council meeting. And there will also not be any charges against the officers in the Clark case at the state level. Attorney General Javier Becerra says a review shows the officers believe Clark was armed and that they were in danger at the time of the shooting. Becerra says the case highlights a need for changes in how law enforcement uses lethal force. A new play, The Fire in Me, puts the topic of domestic violence on stage. KPBS reporter Tara Minto says it's based on real experiences from members of San Diego's Filipino community.
You did this, you knew!
That's the sound of a domestic violence victim's inner voice. It's part of a pivotal scene that has cast members chasing lead actress Rihanna Casio with funhouse-style mirrors. They corner her and shout she's to blame for the abuse her character endured.
You did this, you knew!
They just keep repeating those lines, culminating in, "It's all your fault. It's all your fault."
The presentation aims to raise awareness and start conversations around domestic violence.
If we don't talk about it, then nothing's going to change.
Playwright Thelma Verada de Castro interviewed actual survivors from the local Filipino community for the grant-funded production. They remained anonymous, but provided de Castro photos that represented their assault and recovery. But de Castro says the problem isn't limited to one cultural group.
And I got that question several times. Is there a lot of domestic violence in the Filipino community? And I was concerned about giving that impression. And my answer is domestic violence is in every community, and we all need to address it.
The live performance is a step toward that, but de Castro warns it can be overwhelming for audiences. She encourages attendees to take breaks, like at a recent showing at the Skyline Hills Library.
And I saw people at the performance doing that, taking breaks, going outside when it was too much. And I saw someone come right back in and get a hug from the person next to them.
The next performance is Sunday at the San Diego Central Library. It's not recommended for those under 18.
You did this! You knew!
Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
A third performance is scheduled at the Scripps Miramar Ranch Library later this month. The self-help industry brings in $11 billion a year, according to Forbes. People are looking for ways to earn more money and be happier versions of themselves. This is one of the ideas being discussed at a marketing convention held last week here in San Diego. And one of the speakers says the key may be found in the childhood practice of playing make-believe.
For 10 years, thousands of people have come to San Diego for the latest in digital marketing. With 6,000 participants, founders say the Traffic and Conversion Summit is the largest convention of its kind in the world. Todd Herman is one of the featured speakers.
How many people are bringing an ally in between the 6 inches of your ears, though? The most powerful place to bring it.
Herman tells the attentive crowd how to push past emotional baggage to achieve their most ambitious goals.
If that little voice of resistance and self-doubt crept in, those glasses had to come off because Super Richard wasn't showing up. That was Todd showing up in that moment.
Herman specializes in one-on-one coaching, teaching people to be more confident, resilient versions of themselves. On this day, he's sharing the alter ego effect, the title of his new book, and the theory that assuming an alter ego can help a person perform at a higher level.
It's tapping into our creative imagination, this superpower that human beings have to help us bring out a new level of performance.
Herman doesn't reveal his clients, but says they include CEOs, Olympic athletes, and other high performers. The audience is a mix of people hearing his message for the first time and others who are back for more.
That's the first time I've heard someone say, hey, it's okay to have multiple egos or multiple, let's call it personalities, right, in different areas of your life. That's the first time I've heard that. And so that was something like, yeah, because I know for myself, I am different people with different situations.
We're multifaceted beings, and you get to choose which facet you're putting forward.
It's working.
When leaning on or activating, as Herman likes to say, an alter ego, Herman says it's helpful to wear a symbol or a reminder of the motivation. For him, it's his glasses, a trick he learned from his favorite childhood superhero, Superman. Herman points out there's research supporting enclothed cognition, which describes the psychological impact of clothes. So KPBS News reached out to Professor Piotr Winkelmann at UC San Diego's Department of Psychology to learn more. Winkelmann says research does show enclothed cognition can make a difference, but says the effects are modest. And in a statement he writes, adapting manners, clothes, and appearances of someone else has been shown to have cost, with perception of inauthenticity, pretension, fakery, dishonesty, appropriation, etc. But San Diego small business owner Wendy Goldman says Herman's techniques have worked for her.
I'm a busy person. I don't have time to mess around. So I just want, what do I need right now? What's going to work for me? And Todd gives you that.
Thousands of other people seem to agree. With 15,000 digital downloads of The Alter Ego Effect since its 2019 release.
The Alter Ego Effect is currently on the Wall Street Journal's top 10 list of best-selling business books. It takes an average of 10 years and $2 billion to develop a drug from the research lab to the pharmacy shelf. KPBS health reporter Susan Murphy shows us how local scientists are using robots to speed up the process.
So if you come over here, this is our full system.
Inside a biomedical lab in Torrey Pines, robots are working around the clock to discover medicines to potentially treat diseases like cancer and brain disorders.
And essentially, we will test 100,000 compounds or hundreds of thousands of compounds or 1 million compounds against this disease model to try to find potential drugs, or at least a starting place for potential drugs for a disease.
Mitchell Hull is a principal investigator with the California Institute for Biomedical Research, or CALIBR. It's a new drug discovery division of Scripps Research.
What we try to do here is we try to work on multiple targets for a disease.
The two nonprofits recently merged in an effort to bring life-saving treatments to patients much faster. It essentially puts researchers and drug discovery experts, along with their robots, under one roof. The robots, with long mechanical arms, shuffle small cartridges carrying disease models to various equipment. The plastic plates are pulled from a stack one at a time and tested against an expansive library of drug compounds.
and it uses a pulse of sound to essentially transfer a very small quantity of liquid, usually a potential drug in our case.
The robots work on dozens of diseases at any given time. Cole says they can take months or even years off the normally arduous process of developing new medicines.
We're dealing with very small volumes that a human can't transfer. The robots are also more exact, obviously, but they're also faster. They can run 24/7.
Bringing a drug from a laboratory bench to a patient's bedside is typically done by for-profit companies. It takes an average of 10 years and millions or billions of dollars for a drug to make the journey from discovery to the marketplace. And it's a monumental task for nonprofit researchers who often have to build their own foundation of fundraising to move their idea forward. But now at Scripps, the process is streamlined.
My group focuses on the translation of antibody-based therapeutics and cellular therapies for cancer.
Travis Young is Vice President of Biologics with Scripps Caliber. His team is preparing to launch 2 clinical trials this year, one for prostate cancer and another for lymphoma.
What we're doing there is we're genetically engineering a patient's own cells and endowing them with the capacity to go and find tumor in the patient's body, and in a way repurposing the patient's immune system in order to tackle the cancer.
Young says the projects demonstrate the ability of a nonprofit to overcome the bottleneck of drug discovery.
So it's a great example of how we've taken an idea in the lab and moved it forward through these different stages of development.
Scripps' new model also includes a funding plan. Revenue generated from successful drug developments will be reinvested into more research. Matt Tremblay is Scripps' chief operating officer.
One thing that's different about a nonprofit versus a commercial drug developer, if we create a drug and we develop revenues from that, we reinvest all of that revenue into further research. So we don't have shareholders, we don't have other profit centers. We're a nonprofit. So all that money is reinvested into more research, which creates this kind of evergreen ecosystem for developing new medicines.
Here's a clinical assessment of a patient.
That ecosystem is attracting attention from pharmaceutical experts, philanthropists, and foundation leaders across the nation, including Brian Fisk of the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which supports research into a Parkinson's treatment.
We're always looking for sort of innovative ways of accelerating the whole drug development challenge.
Fisk saw some of those innovations at a recent symposium hosted by Scripps.
Coming to a meeting like this gives me an opportunity, one, really to engage with the scientific community and the researchers doing the hard work, and then I can kind of bring some of those ideas back to my team.
Scripps Research currently has 10 drug candidates in varying stages of development. Meanwhile, Mitchell Hull and the robots have more in the pipeline.
So we work on a lot of neglected disease here and infectious disease, tropical disease.
With 1.7 million people expected to be diagnosed with a new case of cancer this year and hundreds of thousands more afflicted with infectious or neurological diseases, the discovery of life-saving drugs can't come soon enough. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
So far, the work from the robots has resulted in 2 FDA-approved drugs already being tested in clinical trials. Well, there is a chance of rain overnight, but it's expected to be pretty light. Regina Miller has details in tonight's forecast.
Rain in central down towards Southern California, and we are going to be seeing some of that rainfall making its way farther southward for tonight and tomorrow. So the heaviest rainfall amounts are going to be places like Monterey down to Point Conception, but even down towards Santa Barbara County, Ventura counties, and Los Angeles counties. We do have flood watches in effect there in the burn scar area. As you notice, we don't have anything here right now as far as any kind of flash flood watches into San Diego County. Just some spotty showers around for tonight at 58 degrees. And with our futurecast starting off at 6 p.m., you can see how we've got some of the showers pushing down around Camp Pendleton or Oceanside. And then for tomorrow, this is in the morning hours, we have the rainfall around showers from Long Beach down towards Camp Pendleton and Oceanside. And then for tomorrow, midday into the afternoon, we'll see those showers around the area. So taking a look at our forecast for tonight, we have showers around in Borrego Springs, Oceanside down to Chula Vista. And then for tomorrow, a mixture of clouds and sunshine, places like Borrego Springs and into Mount Laguna, Oceanside down towards Chula Vista, seeing some of those showers. For the late week, we're still going to see some spotty showers around parts of Southern California, and it is going to be cool. Taking a look at the coast, we have spotty showers for your Wednesday, 64 degrees. Thursday, partly sunny and 63. Cloudy skies on Friday and 58 degrees, so it's definitely going to be a cool one. On Wednesday, inland locations not as warm, mostly cloudy. And then for Thursday, actually Wednesday night and Thursday, there could be a couple of showers around there, a little bit of morning rain on Friday, cool with some sun on Saturday. In the mountain areas, we'll have cooler conditions for your Wednesday, mostly cloudy, a shower in places for Thursday. Windy and colder on Friday, a temperature of only 36 degrees. And in the desert areas, mostly cloudy on Wednesday at 75 degrees, clouds and sun and cool on Thursday, and rather cloudy and only 63 degrees on Friday. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
On a programming note, tomorrow Evening Edition will be live from Borrego Springs for the Super Bloom. We will be covering the economy, the flowers, and the desert. Be sure to tune in. Customs and Border Protection says it is seeing a spike in people crossing the border illegally. As a result, a new processing center will be opened and built in El Paso. The agency announced today that the new facility will be geared towards families and medical care. Customs and Border Protection says 76,000 people crossed illegally last month, which is more than double the same period last year. Agents say many of the crossings involve large groups in remote locations. They provide an unfiltered look at the intersection of life and rap music. As AP reporter John Moan explains, these citizen journalists provide a voice for communities routinely ignored by mainstream media.
And I'm just reporting the news. Like when I report the good, the bad, the ugly.
Sean Cotton is looking for his latest interview.
Fort Worth is like the 90s, man. The gang banging is still full effect. Bloods and Crips.
Cotton, a prolific video blogger, regularly visits high crime neighborhoods in search of stories about street gangs and gang affiliated rappers. He recently interviewed 30 Rich, the stage name for 21-year-old Wayne Walker, a rapper from Fort Worth, Texas.
Now, this is a Crip neighborhood, though, right? I mean, it ain't. Okay.
The work is lucrative. Cotton's YouTube channel, Say Cheese TV, by some estimates, makes up to $15,000 a month. He also has deals with advertisers and rap labels through his work on Instagram.
License to carry. I didn't have it until Zach got killed.
It's my bulletproof vest.
But danger is definitely a part of the job.
I wear it, for safety reasons. After my homie Zach TV, got killed, I kind of took in consideration to be more safe when I'm out in, poverty areas doing interviews.
Zach Stoner, a pioneer in the citizen journalism entertainment format, chronicled Gangland Chicago. He was gunned down in May of 2018, presumably by someone in a street gang who took offense to his reporting. Police have yet to make an arrest. Rodney Phillips, a former gang member, says Stoner provided valuable local reporting.
A guy who gave Chicago a platform on the culture of the street culture and the struggles and the raw reality what goes on every day in these Chicago neighborhoods.
Cotton says Stoner inspired him to pick up a camera. He says he gives rappers like 30 Rich a chance to change the narrative.
Exposure, better future, life, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
30 Rich's song Money Laundering talks about his November 2018 arrest. Police seized $70,000 from his car, but the money laundering charge was later dropped.
Right. And then you got pulled over.
I had the whole $70,000 cash on me.
Critics say these types of videos glorify gang violence, but Cotton and a growing cohort of street video bloggers say they provide an unfiltered look at the intersection of life and rap music in the toughest neighborhoods in the U.S.
I knew there were people out there who had stories to tell, and they didn't know how to tell their story.
And for Cotton, the rewards outweigh the risks. John Moan, Associated Press, Fort Worth, Texas.
Judy Woodruff tonight on the NewsHour assessing the damage after the deadliest tornadoes to hit the U.S. in nearly 6 years. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Now, here's a recap of tonight's top stories. At least 1,000 federal workers still have not received their back pay from the government shutdown. The TSA tells KPBS a small percentage of its employees have experienced pay discrepancies and that the agency is working to resolve the issue. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer is calling for a more moderate state Republican Party. He spoke at the New Way California Summit today in Sacramento. The event is organized by Republicans who believe the National Party has become too conservative. And the state will not file any charges in the police shooting death of Stephon Clark, the unarmed African-American man who was killed last year in Sacramento. Dozens of people were arrested last night when local prosecutors decided not to criminally charge the officers who shot and killed him. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.